What is the nature of pride? People are proud of how they look, how much money they make, how much things they possess, their athletic abilities, even their spirituality. Underneath all of this, the basis of pride is the ego. It is an image which we have built for ourselves. And pride is the mechanism by which that image is reinforced. So, to understand pride, we have to understand our self-image. Our self-image originates the moment we were born into this world. Our parents gave us a name, and that labeled us who we are. Society tells us what is good and what is bad, what looks good and what looks bad, what is rich and what is poor. Our friends, our family, our teachers, they all try to shape us into an image which would reinforce their ego. And from this, our ego arises. So our ego is really a reflection of society's ego. And this is what most people think of as the self, the ultimate self, the only self. They go through their lives reinforcing this self, this ego, until that is the only identity they can imagine having. But if you really look at it, what you imagine as your identity is really just an illusion created by society. This is society's dance. It creates different egos, different personalities, different identities, and have them interact with each other. Just as atoms interact with each other to form molecules, and planets interact with each other to form solar systems, egos interact with each other to form society. And thus, the ego is just a part of a pattern that has ups and downs and fronts and backs, positives and negatives, good and bad. All patterns are dualistic in nature. And that which is rooted in dualism is not what is fundamentally real. Because that which is rooted in dualism is finite. And the finite will always be nothing compared to the infinite. You take any finite number, whether it be 1, 1,000, or 1 trillion trillion. You take that and divide it by infinity, and it always goes towards 0. And thus, being dualistic, the ego is fundamentally 0 compared to the infinite. And yet, we are proud when our ego is bolstered. We feel so much accomplishment when we think this ego is successful. But when we do that, we tend to forget how insignificant the ego is compared to the infinite. Even though the infinite is the basis from which all finite things arises. When we identify with the ego, with the finite, we lose our identity with the infinite. And thus we forget who we really are, our true self, the self that is underneath all the dance of dualism. And thus, the nature of pride is that it leads us to forget who we are, who we really are. It just leads us to be more lost in our ego. And thus, it makes us miss the point of who we are. It makes us miss the mark. And that is why it is considered a fundamental sin. Because the original meaning of the word sin is to miss the mark. And that doesn't have anything to do with moral dogmas of any religions. So, when pride arises, remember that it is a part of society's game, of the ego's game, of the dualistic game. And it is there to lead us astray, to make us forget who we really are.